Well, look who clicked on this video. Welcome, comrade of curiosity. If this is your first time, subscribe faster than your Wi-Fi can lag and share the video with someone who desperately needs a distraction. Let me know where you're watching from, even if it's your couch and socks. Onward. My name is Charlie, and just 3 weeks before I was meant to walk down the aisle, the woman I intended to marry made a request. Not for a heart-to-heart, not for coffee, but for a night with her ex. Not metaphorically. A night in the plainest, most unmistakable sense. I first crossed paths with Sophia at a rooftop party a mutual friend hosted about 3 years ago. She had a quiet elegance, composed, intelligent, slightly reserved, the kind of person who doesn't demand attention but effortlessly draws it. We clicked right away. Things weren't perfect between us, but we worked. We made sense. There was no rushing. A year into dating, we moved in together. A year later, we got engaged. The wedding was planned for early June, set in a quaint summer venue just outside the city, a place Sophia had dreamed about for as long as I'd known her. My parents helped with the deposit. We had a DJ booked, picked the florist, and approved the cake after sampling it. Her gown had been purchased 6 months prior. I didn't feel anxious. If anything, I felt confident. Or so I believed. About a month before the wedding, I started picking up on slight changes in Sophia. Nothing overt, just small things. She kept her phone face down more often. Dinners got quieter. Her attention drifted more easily. I told myself it was normal pre-wedding stress. People act a little differently under pressure. Then one night, as we were sitting on the couch halfway through a show, she reached for the remote and shut off the TV mid-scene. "Charlie," she said, "can we talk?" I paused, unsure where it was going. "Of course, what's on your mind?" She took a moment, clearly running through a mental script. She folded her legs beneath her and leaned forward slightly. "There's something I need to ask. I'd like you to listen before you respond." A subtle shift took place inside me. Not fear, not despair, just an alertness. I nodded. "It's about Liam," she said, her former boyfriend. I didn't interrupt. I waited. Her tone was even, measured. "I want to spend one night with him. Just one." I stayed still. My expression didn't change, but right then everything did. She looked at me calmly, as though she'd asked about taking a weekend trip or some time off from work. Her hands rested neatly in her lap. Nothing about it seemed impulsive. "I need a night," she repeated. "To talk, to tie up loose ends, to be sure everything's closed." "To talk?" I asked. "That's how you're framing it?" She didn't flinch. "Yes." I leaned back and exhaled through my nose. "So you want to sleep with your ex before marrying me? That's what you're asking?" Her jaw tightened, but only slightly. "That's not how I see it." "No?" I said. "Then help me see it your way." She didn't cry, didn't raise her voice. This was something she'd clearly rehearsed. "This isn't about sex," she said. "It's not even emotional in that way. I haven't been in touch with him for over a year, but I need to be absolutely sure I'm not bringing any unfinished feelings into our marriage." I didn't speak. She pressed on. "I believed I had moved on. Maybe I have. But lately, I've been wondering if I really had closure. I don't want to begin our life together carrying doubt. I need certainty. No what-ifs." I looked straight at her. "So, what you're telling me is that right before we get married, you want to spend a night alone with Liam to figure out whether or not you're still in love with him?" "That's right," she said. "And I'm telling you because I respect you. I'm being honest. That's why, because I care enough not to deceive you." A dry laugh escaped me. "You care," I echoed. "I do," she insisted. "That's why I'm being truthful." I shook my head. "And if it turns out you're not over him?" She lowered her gaze for a moment. When she looked back up, her face was unreadable. "Then at least I'll know." I stood slowly. For the first time that night, uncertainty flickered across her face. "Charlie," I raised a hand to stop her. "No arguments, no fight. If you want one last night to revisit the past, that's your choice." Her eyes searched mine. "You're serious?" I gave a single nod, completely. She seemed genuinely surprised. Thank you for understanding. I said nothing. That evening was the final normal night we ever shared. The next morning, I woke early. She was asleep beside me, peaceful, like she hadn't just dropped a match on the foundation of what we were building. I didn't bring it up again. I acted like nothing had changed. But by then, my mind was made up. That same day, I began quietly disentangling my life from the one we were planning together. I reviewed every account in my name: utility bills, venue deposits, the honeymoon car rental, hotel bookings for relatives, the moving van due the following week. One by one, I made the calls. I began to undo everything. With each task, the weight lifted a little more. When I got back home that night, Sophia was making dinner. She greeted me with a kiss and the usual warmth. I kissed her back. She left Friday, an overnight bag hanging from her shoulder. She hugged me at the door. Long, like it was a gesture of maturity. Like being forthright earned her some kind of credit. "I'll be back tomorrow evening," she said. I gave a nod. "You're handling this better than I thought you would." I shrugged. "I just want you to be sure." She smiled faintly and kissed my cheek. "I'll call when I'm on my way back." I stood in the doorway and watched her drive off. Then I got moving. First, I cleared my half of the closet. Clothes, my watch collection, all important paperwork. From the safe under the bed, I retrieved my passport, legal documents, and a small envelope of cash. I didn't touch her things, not a single item. This wasn't about payback. It was about leaving. By sundown, there was no trace of me in that apartment. I loaded my final bag into the car and stood in the doorway for one last moment, taking in the space where we'd planned to start our life. No grand goodbye, no drama. I did leave one item behind, a white envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No drawn-out explanation, no anger. Just this: "You asked for one night with your past. You had it. I've decided not to be part of your future. Charlie." I walked out, turned the key in the lock, and never looked over my shoulder. By the time she lay her head next to Liam's, I was already far down the highway, halfway to another city. I didn't check my phone. I didn't care what she was doing. I had no desire to compete for the affection of someone who needed a trial run before pledging forever. She came back late Saturday evening, just after 8:30. I knew because the door camera pinged me. I watched the video, her strolling in casually, bag slung across her shoulder, smiling faintly like she'd made some wise, grown-up decision by taking time to find clarity. Then the living room camera caught her calling out for me, once, then again louder. When she reached the bedroom, she froze. The closet was half empty. Drawers stood open, my shoes gone. Desk cleared. Her first instinct was that we'd been robbed. That's what she told Naomi afterward, that the place looked like it had been torn apart. Then she spotted the envelope on the kitchen counter. She called me right away, straight to voicemail. She texted. Nothing. Tried WhatsApp. Blocked. The next morning, she turned up at my parents' doorstep. My father answered, expression unreadable, and told her calmly I wasn't there. He didn't explain, didn't invite her in. Just said, "You can leave a message if you like." She didn't leave one. By Monday, she'd taken it online, writing a long, polished post about how I'd walked out without warning, about how love demands forgiveness. She painted it as a tragic misunderstanding. But it wasn't confusion. It was intent. A misunderstanding happens by accident. What she did was precise. A deliberate line crossed to see how far I'd bend, betting I wouldn't call her out. She never expected I'd answer with silence, and she never imagined it would hold. When she tried to justify herself to our friends, even they struggled. I heard Naomi explain once, she didn't technically cheat. She asked. She thought that made it different. But everyone still saw it for what it was. A gamble, and she lost. In the weeks that followed, I vanished. New city, temporary apartment, no social media. I erased every trace of myself online, shut down old accounts, even switched my email. Anything linked to Charlie Dawson, fiancé, was gone. Every letter she sent to my office was returned unopened. Every message through mutual friends went unanswered. She even showed up at a birthday party we were both supposed to attend, but I wasn't there. She left early. Meanwhile, her post kept circulating, people resharing it with captions like "communication matters" or "men need to open up more." But then came the sharper replies. One stayed with me. "You didn't slip up. You chose. So did he. Live with it." I never commented. I never liked a thing. Silence said enough. Wedding vendors began emailing. Florist, photographer, caterer. Each got the same brief reply. "Cancel. Keep the deposit." I didn't want any piece of that future. Not the flowers. Not the photos. Not even the conversations. Sophia thought her request was practical. Reasonable even. But she never grasped what a man hears when the woman he's ready to marry says, "I just need one last night with someone else to be sure about you." What he hears isn't reassurance. It's goodbye. Almost a year later, I ran into Naomi at a networking mixer. Cheap wine, stiff handshakes, bland hors d'oeuvres. I was halfway through a tasteless slider when I heard my name. "Charlie?" I turned. Naomi stood there, Sophia's closest friend back then, looking both startled and oddly relieved that I hadn't walked off. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said. "I moved last fall, new job," I told her. She nodded, took a slow sip of her drink. Then, "Sophia, she's still not over it." I didn't react. Not surprising. "She says she thought you just needed space, that eventually you'd come back." I raised an eyebrow. "She asked to sleep with her ex before our wedding, Naomi." Naomi exhaled hard. "I know. I told her it was insane, but she really believed being honest would count for something." "It did count," I said evenly. "It counted more than anything." Naomi studied me. "She's in therapy now. Calls it the worst mistake of her life. She swears she thought you'd confront her, yell anything, just not vanish." I leaned back against the table, calm. She wasn't asking for trust. She was asking for permission to betray it. Naomi went quiet, letting that hang. "She honestly believed you'd still marry her," she said softly. I gave a faint, flat smile. "And that was the problem." Naomi sighed. "You were always the quiet one. She mistook that for tolerance." "No," I replied. "It meant I noticed everything." We chatted a little longer, nothing serious. When we finally parted ways, she didn't bother with goodbye, just nodded. She understood now. People assume silence is surrender, that if someone doesn't fight or shout, it's because they don't care. But silence isn't empty, it's intentional. It's an answer that doesn't need words. When Sophia asked for that night with her ex, she didn't simply cross a boundary. She erased it altogether. She expected anger, begging, drama. Instead, she got acceptance, followed by disappearance, and that unsettled her more than any outburst ever could. There are those, Sophia included, who approach love like a negotiation, believing that stating the intention to betray somehow lessens the betrayal itself, as if voicing the decision in advance makes the hurt more bearable. But love doesn't operate within those terms, and neither does betrayal. She came to me with a request, one evening to revisit something she'd left behind. In return, I gave her not just permission, but something far more final, freedom. Complete, unequivocal. That was my reply, and I never took it back. I started over in a new place, far from the life we'd shared. Another city, a different career, a calmer pace. I didn't carry bitterness with me. What I took instead was a sharper sense of what mattered. Trust doesn't require defending or dissecting. It's either intact or it's gone. Even now, I sometimes find myself back in that moment, on the couch, watching her face as she said, "I just need one night," like it was no more significant than asking for a favor, as if I'd naturally accept. And I did. I saw it for what it was, a reminder that without mutual respect, love loses all meaning. It became clear to me then that anyone still longing for the past isn't ready to face what lies ahead. And in that silence, In my quiet departure, I spoke more loudly than any words ever could. She made her choice, and I made mine. When she walked out the door in search of old echoes, she didn't realize it would be the last time we'd share a space. And now, when people ask if I regret what I did, I tell them this. She wanted one final evening with someone she once cared for. I let her have it. And in doing so, I gave myself something she couldn't offer: peace.